everybody. My name is Eric McLeod.
And I'm Chris Holden.
And you are listening to LowBlowRadio podcast. It is, today it's Sunday, November 8th, but what we're going to do a little rapid blow of is the AEW Full Gear. That was Saturday, November 7th. It was their big pay-per-view that took place last night. Ran a little long, so we decided to do our rapid blow this morning instead, and we'll get it out to you as soon as we can. But man, Chris, what a hell of a pay-per-view here.
This was awesome. I think this played into a bit from my thinking last night was nobody's going to shit on any part of this. Everyone's going to have loved all of it. I don't know if we're giving anybody anything new by repeating all that same shit last night. So, and that's from what I watched this morning before going out for some Remembrance Day photos. That is very much seems to be the take on it from the online community is this was a fantastic pay-per-view. Great job by AEW. Great job by all the workers, all the fucking matches. I saw it as a symphony of styles all night long. We saw something literally for everybody. What did you think of the show overall?
No, for sure. I think we're going to end up reiterating and repeating a lot of the other stuff that people were saying, but I think that's for good reason because they pulled off a very solid pay-per-view, sort of top to bottom. Not perfect by any means, but pretty close. I would say pretty darn close to flawless with completing storylines, furthering other things, having certain moments feel very important, and some just flawless storytelling. So overall, a fantastic pay-per-view. So yeah, I think we'll be kind of reiterating a lot of what other people have been saying, but hey, we'll give our sort of rapid blow here of the events of Full Gear. We kind of kicked off with the buy-in. I definitely want to make sure we comment on Serena Deeb defending her NWA title, yet again against Allison Kay. Nice to see Allison here working. Well, she just left the NWA, but again, kind of working with them here, but then kind of debuting for AEW to a certain degree. Hopefully, I think she showed very well. I think even in a loss, definitely showcased a really high talent there that they could bring into the circle here in AEW.
I thought it was super interesting. I love the match. Like no qualms with the match itself. It was great. Good story back and forth. Allison looked great as the challenger and could definitely offer more challenge in the future to Serena, who looked really good as the title holder. Yeah. And I like Thunder Rosa coming out at the end and kind of reiterating that stamp on like, hey, that was mine. I'm still in this picture. I found it interesting. It was Allison Kay going for the belt, considering, as you mentioned, she left NWA this week and declared her free agency. So here she is wrestling technically under the AEW banner, but for the NWA championship, which they were calling the NWA Women's World Title, which is distinctly different from the NWA specifically brands it as the NWA World Women's Championship. So I've wondered if there was something in that the belt had a very, very slightly different name, but that's a different name than it's been very deliberately called for a long time. Right. So it started my head wondering, has AEW actually bought the NWA women's division, or have they come to some arrangement where they're holding some sort of agreement where they're booking it more? Or has Tony Khan got some actual vested investment now in NWA? I mean, having said all of this, then a lot of my theories on this got thrown out of the window in the very first match of the actual pay-per-view, because they're obviously working very hand in hand with a lot of other organizations. So
yeah, no, I think there's a lot of sort of hands in different places here, and we're starting to see a little bit more of that trickling into AEW. The fact that they are sort of have obviously early on they were saying they had more willingness to work with these places, and we're starting to see a little bit more of that now.
Yeah,
trickling in little bits, and I certainly would agree with the argument that people were saying that this was getting a little bit more highlight and glorification than the actual women's AEW title, which I mean you can't really argue against that, but I still think talent-wise, great to just be showcasing more women here and hopefully get more of them on your sort of main roster in main storylines. And yeah, the return of Thunder Rosa is a pretty big deal too, considering the speculation as to where she was potentially going to end up sort of post losing the NWA title and that kind of thing. So it seems like she's still working with the AEW and NWA people here. So curious to see how the rest of that plays out. But yeah, real fun sort of kickoff for the buy-in, as well as the video packages to get you sort of hyped up for Full Gear here.
Yeah, totally agreed. It was a great, even from 6 o'clock, there was stuff on that was the highlights and previews and reviews of the feuds and capsule moments of the different things to get us to tonight's different matches. And it just kept highlighting what a stacked card this was.
Yeah.
And I started to wonder then, what's our opener going to be? Are we going with our hot tag traditional? Are we going to start with FTR and the Bucks? Are we going to start with Orange and Brent? Where are we going? And then we got Kenny versus Page, which I didn't have on my radar to start the night.
No, for sure. I think I always try to run the card through my head, and I try to sort of place where I feel matches are going to feel the most important and the best sort of arrangement and sort of thing, and sort of play into how AEW tries to present themselves to a certain degree as well. They certainly try to make their championships feel as important as they can by putting them as like high up on the card as they do. So that sort of played into a little bit as to what could be the opener here, but yeah, in putting the card together in my head, this match almost slipped off my radar, and I was like, oh yeah, where do you end up putting Kenny and Hangman? And when you end up looking at the card overall, perfect placement for this match, especially coming down to how they ended up playing it out. Before we get to the sort of,
just how I agree with you, and how the rest of the card played out, and how the rest of the workers reacted to what at the time felt very much like the two of these guys walked into the back and said, fuck the rest of you, hold our beers and follow that, and good luck. And then everybody subsequently went out and did that.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was left by the end of this match feeling like this was a match of the night before I'd seen any other matches. And by the end of the night, it was really, really good, but it wasn't the best match of the night. And it was just part of this overall package of excellence. No, I don't want to be overselling something and really, I feel like maybe I'm going too far, but it was so good. And this was just the beginning, and it was.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's just what made, I think that's what makes a good pay-per-view, is something that just keeps you captivated, keeps you like intrigued in each story telling for each match, and nothing really felt like a lull. I mean, there were certain points, we'll get to that as we kind of get through things here, but no, this opener was it could have certainly set a particular tone that would have been hard to capitalize on, but they just chose to take that ball and run with it, and they certainly kept that momentum going. Keeping me super invested here. With the kickoff with this, and then seeing Don Callis joining the people on commentary was huge. Them announcing like he is an Impact CEO, so there is like the connections there, and how much he has connections with Kenny and Chris, obviously, and the matches they had in New Japan. So adding another level of importance to this matchup before we even got to the actual events of the match.
And to even imagine a day in the old days where Tony Schiavone, when he'd been working for WCW, just happens to show up on WWF pay-per-view to call a Ric Flair match because he's known about him and of him and called so many matches through the years, would never have happened. The explosion from that, and this really is that kind of equivalency. It was a huge, huge thing to have him sitting there, and right on the screen, Vice President, Impact. Acknowledgement of the other company, acknowledgement by JR. You guys are doing some good work there, and it's almost like this ushering in of a new age of.
Oh, for sure.
These guys that aren't WWE, I can totally imagine in 2021 we're going to get a co-pay-per-view, a real inter-promotional with real inter-promotions that aren't actually all owned by Vince. It's not just Survivor Series bullshit mode. It's going to be for real, and I think it's coming. You almost smell it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it certainly feels like that. There's more implications that there could be far more involvement with other organizations, and I think that's fantastic. But sticking to the actual matchup here, I really enjoyed that. We already sort of knew that you're going to get a great match out of Kenny and Hangman, regardless who their opponents are, but great to have them facing off against each other, especially for the first time in AEW, and the level of how much they've built to this matchup as well, with them sort of clashing beforehand, getting the tag belts, and then the sort of breakup there and that kind of stuff leading into this match. But then that wasn't sort of what this match was built on. The fact that they were fighting, it was just the fact that they had both won the tournament and got to the end of the tournament final. So this really felt more like a tournament finals match, which was still fantastic, more so than a blood feud between two former teammates that had broken up. Even though it had elements of that, those were more, the elements of that were more the fact that these two knew each other so well, and one was just able to capitalize on it a little bit better than the other one. But there were certainly moments where it seemed like it could go the other way.
Definitely agreed. It wasn't, the emotion of the match wasn't driven by, oh my God, you used to be my best friend.
Yeah.
It was driven by the competitive nature, but as you said, the elements of you used to be my tag team partner and we were the champs came from, I know what you're trying to do right now, so I'm going to counter that. And I know you know that you think I know that I'm going to do, right? It was brilliant, the Sicilian game being played within. Right down to the One Wing Angel finish and the way that Hangman kept on fighting it off the one time and got away from it. But even at the end, he kept on fighting with having his head tucked and taking it.
Yeah.
Because he knew, you get my head down and do this, I can't, I'm done. Nobody kicks out of the One Wing Angel. I had this brief glimmer of, is Hangman going to be the first one to break the thing on this? And he wasn't. That's still to come.
Yeah,
so
I think
beautiful.
It will be, but it won't be in this match.
Not last night.
No.
So I loved it, man. I thought it was great.
Awesome.
Some of the awesome individual moves in the match. Just some of the highlighty spots that
they started off.
I like the fadeaway slam, but then the powerbomb on the stage. Kenny's head's going to be ringing for a couple of days after that one for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They started off hot with the chops, like straight to the throat and like the upper chest.
Yeah.
You could tell they were just going in to start things off pretty hot and heavy. And it was a lot of that sort of, whatever you can do, I could do better. It was a lot of that competition. One-upmanship here. That's just sort of added another level of the story. And then, there was certainly some restraint, though, as well, from not telling a lot of the other emotional side of this that we'll get later on when these two continue. I think this is going to be one of the longest sort of stories told in AEW, in wrestling in general, I think, when look back on as a total sort of thing here. So, I mean, solid opener here, but 16 minutes. But, the Hangman sort of exhausting all his moves too, hitting the dead shot, which we haven't seen in a while, going for the buckshot lariat so many times and coming so close. And then sort of realizing that he had just sort of gone through everything he could, withered by that point to eventually get caught with the One Wing Angel and not be able to get away. Kenny not even acknowledging him after the fact, just walking out to the back, nothing like too specific, but very impactful, where he just sort of, okay, I won. This is over.
A quick pat on the fallen body after the 3 count, after the sit-up thing for a few seconds. He leaned over and he kind of gave him that was a good match, Pat, and then stood up and wandered off, which was, again, I think that's just a classic extra element. He's not lingering too much on the accomplishment he's just got because he's overconfident, cocky Kenny. In his mind, of course, it's a foregone conclusion he was winning this match.
No,
he's won every tournament he's ever entered. Blah blah blah.
I was going to say we'll just hear about this accomplishment in his next entrance. So this one was even better than all the other ones have been too. This was the best, cleaner entrance so far, with the accolades of he's got 8 years more experience than Hangman Page here. There was just so many little levels of it here that this sort of turn for Kenny is just been fantastic. So a great way to kick things off. And then it was sort of like, okay, where do you kind of go from here, right? Unsure sort of booking wise, and they sort of throw a bit of a curveball at you, but I think this was a fantastic change of pace when they brought out John Silver versus Orange Cassidy as the next match.
Yeah, and my anticipation was like, good idea, follow up that 5-star opener with a comedy match that, these guys can both entertain. This will be a decent comedy bout. And it kind of started out that way. And then it turned into a fucking wrestling match. Yeah. And then it turned into like a really good fucking wrestling match. And they got to display exactly why John Silver is going to be the guy coming out of the Dark Order right now. If you'd asked me 3 months ago, who's it being built around and for to get the big kick for, I would probably have guessed Colt Cabana, maybe Evil Uno was the guy that they're looking to give the real shove out. Now it's Silver, right? Like, maybe Reynolds with him, but who else are you going to give that rocket ship to? He was the one-armed gorilla press. Fuck off. That was awesome.
This was a great escalation in a total different way where, they sort of took it to different levels and levels that you can now get from Orange. And I think we talked about this sort of in our text as the thing was going on, but in the sense that like a year ago, you maybe would have got the first half of this match out of Orange Cassidy. That maybe would have been it. But now, since the feud with Jericho and all the other stuff you've seen from Orange, you're able to get a much more expanded storytelling in the ring. You can have him do the comedy Orange spots, which were even more better with a crowd and with a good opponent that could play off it even better than other guys. I thought Silver was the best response to the Orange offense. His response to it were just fantastic, tearing his pockets out, screaming at him about how the kicks don't hurt, and
that doesn't even hurt.
Like, he just his facial expressions are just on point. So yeah, definitely enjoying the push for him there. And then the elevation of it sort of going into but okay, now these guys can actually wrestle, so let's get to a really good wrestling match, and then we'll start having some fantastic spots in there as well. So definitely sort of breaking the pace a little bit for sure, but certainly keeping the energy high and uplifted for sure as we got to the finish there. John Silver sort of trying to do a bit of an homage to Mr. Brody, being a bit of his comeuppance there as he got caught with the beach break into the finish, and a big win for Orange Cassidy, which everyone sort of predicted, but didn't take away from this being a great match.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I think, say again, like we were talking on the text last night, if it's not for the Orange Jericho feud, this match doesn't get off of the pre-card, like the dark tape, right, or the pre-show. So this is, again, testament to what that has done for Orange Cassidy and what that has done for the company as a whole. Now, you didn't just give Orange that rub that's elevated him. It, in turn, will elevate everybody else coming in against Orange Cassidy for a little while. So, like John Silver, a year ago, this does not matter as much. It's not going to have gotten the positioning on the show, and it just isn't going to have mattered the same. Now, thanks to what we've seen over the last 6 months, less than 6 months, it's even more impactful. It's given Silver a real rub. He's one of the real winners of the night to me. This was such an outstanding match, so far above what I think anyone would have predicted this match to have been.
For sure, and exposure for him on a pay-per-view kind of thing. Yeah, fantastic for on both ends. Even in a loss here for John Silver, it just kind of moves him along in the Dark Order sort of escalation too. They're all sort of losing now, and that's not what the Dark Order is all about. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out story-wise on Dynamite. So, hey, speaking of Dynamite, what a great transition to TNT and how they televised their product with the next matchup we had with Cody Rhodes defending the TNT title against Darby Allin. First time we got to hear Cody Rhodes. He's
Cody Rhodes.
Cody. It was sort of announced. He had said it to the crowd after the air last week, but it was certainly an abundance in the wrestling world talk that he was getting his full name back. And nice to sort of have him go full circle. I don't think it really makes a big difference. It was a good showing for Cody that he was able to get over without it. He didn't need the name beforehand. Everyone knew who he was, but they didn't have to rely on him always being Cody and Brandy Rhodes so they could use the name. He got over just as Cody, but nice to have him feel a little bit more full circle here. And great matchup between him and Darby. Wow.
Yeah, awesome match. Cody playing that arrogant heel role again through the course of the actual match itself as he gets overconfident and starts doing the push-ups. Arn Anderson hates push-ups. He hates all exercises.
He hates when Cody just doesn't pay attention. And there were certainly elements of that here where not that he is taking Darby lightly, but he's certainly showing that, like, I've already beaten you a few times. I know your tricks. I know all this stuff. And then Darby just still being a little bit too, rascally and wily and able to take a certain amount of punishment that eventually just sort of leads to Cody overexerting himself and that kind of thing. So a great sort of story, different from the other matchups that we'd already got, which is nice that you're getting from AEW. Not everything feels sort of the same here. So this was a very different matchup in that sense. And that sort of story of just sort of Darby overcoming a lot of the insane offense from Cody, and then Cody just not paying attention to the little things. Like, he didn't need to go for a giant, huge crossroads off the top rope. He probably could have put him away with it if he had paid attention to where he was in the ring and all those kind of things. So, the offense, fantastic on both ends, and the finish, both in this match and something that we'll get to later on, I really enjoyed too, where, again, predicting a lot of these matches, you sort of we sort of knew where some of them were going to go, but I think AEW threw a bit of a curveball at everybody with not having the finishes be as predictable tonight. I was very surprised by a lot of them, and they came at the perfect story kind of moments, with Cody overexerting himself to a certain point here, and then him trying to go back to wrestling, and then Darby being a little bit more fresh and then able to catch him in an actual wrestling maneuver as they were sort of competing in roll-ups, and Cody getting the lesser end of the stick there in the loss, as Darby gets the win and becomes the new TNT champion. No, I really enjoyed the story they were able to tell.
No, a really good finish. I love the way that they got there, and just like you said, different to the matches we've seen already in style, and the finish was different, and we can talk about it again at the end in the bigger picture thing, but no bullshit finishes all night, and all different, unique, right? This was, and a finish off of his finishing move, which made sense how he got there. He only did it the one time with the coffin drop.
Yeah.
It just really, really well done. It made a lot of sense. And then Taz coming in at the end with his boys, that opens up, where is Cody going instead of the TNT title rematch route, which is great, because I think he should go into Brian Cage, and Ricky Stark should be going for the TNT title. That was the only thing that I kind of had a little bit of an eyebrow raise, was Cage and Stark's tug of war over the TNT title.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Cage had the FTW belt around his waist. Like, you've got a belt, champ. Don't worry about it. Let him get the other one. We don't need Cage. We definitely don't need Cage in another title situation that he loses right now. I feel. So if keep him away from a spot, and I don't want to see Darby lose it in the first defense or first program.
Yeah.
So have him against Ricky. Ricky can afford to be the jobber in a decent program with Darby Allin, and have Cage take on Cody, where Cody can afford now to lose to Cage without the prize being on the line. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Yeah, I could certainly see it maybe going that way. My interpretation maybe slightly different. I thought maybe with Taz, Taz's crew coming in, nice to see them sort of. They gave the Darby Cody stuff enough time to breathe, and him giving the belt over to him and that kind of stuff to sort of have Darby have his moment, and then
a nice touch to
do something like this. It didn't feel like it took away the heat or anything like that from Darby. He got to have his moment with the belt, but then just as he was about to finally kind of celebrate, they tore that down from him. I at first thought the angle was going, they wanted to they just wanted to give Darby this moment, and they're going to do the injury angle to then do like something else for the title to maybe open it up, that maybe he can't actually defend the title. They took that away from him, and then he'd be chasing it again or something. But no, they didn't end up going that way. And then I sort of saw the fighting over the belt, seeming that it's going to be the three of them that'll be in the TNT title picture right now, and then that you don't necessarily have to have a big loss for Cage if it's Starks that costs him or something like that, and that's the sort of inter-turmoil there. Whereas obviously, as good as Team Taz is, they don't need each other to get over right now, and if that's going to be the first sort of team that implodes, I'm okay with that. So that was sort of maybe where I sort of saw things going down the road, but it certainly seems like maybe they're going towards a bit more of like Cody maybe teaming with Darby to take them on, or Will Hobbs obviously got involved as well. But a nice sort of shake up for the TNT picture, and it made that moment feel very important for Darby, going from sort of like Cody kept saying the rookie a year ago to this moment feeling very important as the new TNT champion.
I thought it was a great pass off of the belt, with Cody passing the torch almost on his knees, handing it up, and then the arm raise. Nice classy moments, and it sets up. It made it feel a lot more like the passing of something versus when Brody Lee took it, and the manner in which Brody won it. That was just a whole different thing to this loss.
Yeah.
Again, different, unique. It's not the same old shit every time.
No, for sure.
We moved into the AEW Women's World Title match as Hikaru Shida took on Nyla Rose with Vicky Guerrero, which I thought was going to play more into it and make the difference and lead to the title shift, to be frank. So I was surprised myself by the finish. I was also surprised at the quality of the match by the end of it. I thought it was very good. It highlighted that much more how little build this match had and how lackluster it was, because it probably deserved more, because they put on a really good show.
No, for sure. I think again we can talk about this a lot more post because it's like Sunday and we've heard a lot more of the recap things afterwards. And Tony Khan certainly implied that he was sympathetic to the fact that he realized he probably should have been focusing, especially Nyla's story, on Dynamite more than he was. Again, in their minds, they're just focusing on their products they are putting out, but then maybe not realizing that, you know, half the audience doesn't watch Dark. So if you don't know the stuff that happens on there, then these stories do feel very light and unfulfilled. So that was certainly going into this, a lot of the implications, because we hadn't seen Nyla a lot on Dynamite, but the two of them certainly, started off very hot. Once they got the Vicky Guerrero stuff, it got a little sloppy. Obviously, like there's only so much she could do it with her involvement and those kind of things. But her sort of missing catching the foot and the few of the spots on the outside just seemed a little bit sort of sloppy there by the end. But a pretty good matchup overall. And obviously seems like the story for Nyla going forward is maybe a face turn when she turns on Guerrero or whatever, if that's the direction they're going, and then sort of solidifying Hikaru as a dominant women's champion, regardless of maybe not having great stories. She at least has a long reign to hold to her name when they get her to her next competition. So enjoyed it, but not the best thing on the card for sure.
Yeah, again, well, I totally agree. It was it's so hard to class. It's the worst of all the really good matches.
Yeah, exactly.
And
not a downer at all. Like it didn't like take it totally out of it, but when you compare it to the other 9 matches we got to see tonight, it certainly falls lower on the ranks.
And it was followed up by the AEW World Tag Team Title match, arguably the best match of the night, FTR versus the Young Bucks. Just awesome.
Yeah,
what do you say?
Hard to argue this wasn't the best match. It wasn't one of the top best tag matches I've ever seen. It's the best tag match I've seen in AEW. It topped, at least for me, the Young Bucks versus Hangman Page and Kenny match. Was the best FTR match I've seen. One of the best Young Buck matches in the last little while I've seen, because it was a different. Could tell that they can focus on the story, and there were just so much going on when you rewatch or watch this match for the first time. It just had elements, again, the sort of basic storytelling that you have at a wrestling match, and then how much layers they decide to throw in there as well, with just the sort of different strategies, obviously, of both teams, the no flips, just fists of the FTR, and the high flying offense that was slightly hindered due to injury and stuff like that from the Young Bucks. So sort of how they were working within those limitations and then trying to slow the FTR down. The homages to every tag team you can think of in the fucking world was just amazing, from old school on both teams too. You weren't just getting it from FTR. They would do some old school stuff, but then you'd get, the double drop kick spot, the Rockets and stuff like that from the Young Bucks, as well as doing the 3D and the Hardy spot with the senton. The DIY spot and the sharpshooter thing from FTR was amazing, just to see how much they were willing to just come full circle with a lot of this. And an amazing story told finish as well.
It was an homage to tag team wrestling.
Yeah.
It was just so well done. So many great spots, so many great moves. And again, feeling like what might have been a lackluster build 2 weeks ago, I thought they fixed so much of that on Dynamite this week. By the end of this match, I'd totally forgotten that 3 weeks ago I wasn't looking forward to it.
For sure. I think the stipulation all of a sudden felt more important in the match than it did maybe in the build and stuff like that. When you're thinking of it overall, I mean, obviously this had so much to live up to and had to be a pretty high quality match for everyone to be pretty excited anyways. And I think it was certainly, at a bit of a shooting themselves in the foot kind of thing, because obviously when the hype came 4 years ago, it was the fact that they were the best team in WWE going up against top team in the Indies that weren't really solidified in one place. But hey, if you could ever get those two teams in one spot, what would actually happen? Now, this isn't necessarily what everyone had predicted would be the case. Well, what if, the Young Bucks end up making their own company and the FTR come over? But they were able to sort of get to this match in a different way, but still make it feel as important as that sort of dream match when you get to the sort of the end here. I think the FTR going completely undefeated up until now, running into the Young Bucks is very important. Not having Tully Blanchard out there for them was very important, and as well, them getting off their game plan obviously was just insanely great storytelling. They focused so much on it throughout the entire match, and then Cash just being the sort of last man standing out of almost everybody, throwing everything he could at Matt Hardy, or at Matt Jackson with the too sweet fuck you super kick. Could have just put him away, and then just decides, you know what, fuck these guys, I can do flips too. And he did a fantastic flip, but he just didn't hit it on anybody important other than the mat. And then just getting kicked in the face so quick, rather than having a Meltzer driver or a BTE trigger, even though you got those spots sort of teased and happening, they weren't the finish. The false finishes were fantastic. It kept you on the edge of your seat. And then when the finish happened, it just told the best story. The FTR, making their own sort of comeuppance, and then Matt Jackson capitalizing on that with his hurt foot, and solidifying them as the new AEW Tag Team Champions. Fantastic match.
Yeah, agreed. I think the storytelling elements going forward include what you said, Tully not being there, obviously trying to finish him with a flip that they don't use, and that's what cost him the belt. I think it's important to recognize this is not the end of it. Like, this was just the first match of what will be years of matches between these guys. This is going to be a Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express style. So to think that there's a blow off over there, I guess what I feel like now is it helps explain why maybe it was the storytelling specifically for this match was a little loosey-goosey. Yeah. Because it's going to be, by the end of 3-4 years, the matches are what's going to tell the story of the
team. It hindered more on the match and what comes next after that. So I think we just sort of had to get to this point, and everyone sort of, the anticipation and the build sort of, obviously is going to make people feel maybe a little less fulfilled as they were with some of the other matchups, but they overproduced and fulfilled those expectations here with this matchup. And not even to the point where you're like, oh geez, how do you ever top that with the next one? It just shows how good these guys are at tag team wrestling and with each other. The match you always kind of thought was going to be really good was really fucking good. The Young Bucks and FTR tell a great story, and there's a reason for that. They're two very different styles of wrestling and tag team wrestling that work so perfect together. I think that's why, and it just shows how good tag team wrestling can be in that sense too. I don't look at any of these guys and see, oh, but imagine Matt Jackson as a single star, or imagine Cash Wheeler as a single star. Like, I do not see that with any of these guys. They are tag team wrestlers, and I only ever want to see them with each other. So it's just, I think that's another added element to how fantastic both these teams are. Definitely 5 stars from the Low Blow team over here.
For sure. Yep, agreed. New World Tag Team Champions. We moved into the Ultimate Deletion. I've ultimately had enough of these, I think. But it was fine. I didn't hate it. And I really like Gangrel and Hurricane showing up. Little illogical calling Private Party and saying, if shit goes down, show up. You knew shit was going to go down. Just tell them to come and hang out around the ring. If that doesn't go down, then you don't need to get involved. But it's safer to be sorry, right? Or better be safe than sorry.
Yeah, for sure. I think this definitely just falls on the fact that there's just too many of these things already. If this was maybe closer to the other final deletions, or if we hadn't had anything else cinematic until now, it would maybe have a different kind of impact, but certainly feels a little lackluster in the sense that there's just been maybe a bit too much of this. And then the spots were just sort of repeated. There was no real sort of new thing. But again, I pop for stuff. I love seeing Gangrel, love the return of the Lake of Reincarnation and that kind of stuff. Skarsgård being sentient, being able to cut people off at the door, and
the mace or the scepter.
Yeah.
What's that? It's the scepter of what I told you.
I'm gonna say the one thing they do good in AEW is have the commentary in these matches. I think the one thing that lacked in this was this was one for sure they should have had JR take a piss break, because he fucking hated this match and he ruined it on commentary. So he didn't do anything to put anything over in this, and he was a waste of space in the commentary booth.
It was like Michael Cole during WWE's Ultimate Deletion match.
Yeah, true.
Didn't want to sell any of it, and he wasn't playing along.
Yeah.
And you're right. Yeah. Having said the shitty parts, I love the live commentary with the match. I really like the way they do that.
Yeah.
I liked the match just fine up until the overbooking part where you had Inner Circle and Private Party all in the ring and that happening as well. I thought that detracted from what had been a pretty good outside of a wrestling ring Matt and Sammy match. And then I got back into it a bit more once they locked themselves inside the garage with the ring in there. I'd gotten rid of all the outside distraction. I thought it did pick up again. Yeah. I thought the finish was a bit lame. We all know that's the floor you smash with the chair. Maybe it looked a little stiff. I don't know. It's just, that's a little too fake for my blood, because I know you can't really crack a guy in the skull. And especially you guys specifically have had enough near misses, all right? Like, so anyway.
No, I think they had enough sort of callbacks to their old stuff. And then, you felt good that was at least controlled with these two, considering how much they've been sort of cursed by injury and foible in their matchups, that they were far more controlled with certain aspects here. Other than whoever fucking edited this thing, there were so many like weird jump cuts back to the same clips, and like fucking it was so jarring early on. They definitely got it down later on, but a bit and maybe a bit too far on the sort of aggressive side, unless that's the angle they're going. Like if it's a Matt Hardy heel turn, like if he's sort of, you made me this person now because I had to do this to you, because it didn't seem, there was no face qualities to him annihilating Sammy to that degree, and Sammy hasn't necessarily done anything to deserve that on AEW television. So there were elements of that to me where it was like, okay, this seems to be a little bit too far. And then Private Party just being willing participants in it, they were just like, yeah, great murder, let's throw him in a trash can. Like, just like, really, you don't question the fact that he left him limp on the
holy shit, Matt, you killed the guy.
Yeah, did he really need that? Like, did you have to murder him? Like, so was maybe we'll see how it plays out, but that maybe seemed like a bit too far. But again, I would agree that the cluster fuck segment seemed a bit too much with too many people. But if you look at it overall, the way it sort of played into the next match, with the fact that all those other Inner Circle members were elsewhere story-wise, it helped you very much focus on the participants in the next matchup too. So
agreed.
We can end our sort of discussion with the final deletion and use that transition to talk about the next match, which was Chris Jericho and MJF, with the stipulation MJF, if he wins, he can join the Inner Circle. And as I was mentioning, the rest of the Inner Circle not present because they were out at the Hardy compound. Not really sure where Santana and Ortiz were at the end of the night. They just kind of disappeared once the door closed. I guess they just...
Can you get in? I can't get in.
Yeah.
Oh, we tried.
Yeah. But anyways, back to the Jericho match. Nice to just sort of see him with Hager, and then MJF with Wardlow. A lot of sort of good sort of juxtaposition there, and a pretty fun matchup between these two. What you'd sort of expected from them as well.
Yeah, it was just great. Again, so there were similar bits as far as it was a good technical wrestling match, in the same vein that Hangman and Kenny was technically a great wrestling match. Darby and Cody had a good technical wrestling match, but different because it was the two heel elements going at it. Different because of what's on the line in this. You could tell MJF was feeling that pressure of telling Jericho, I'm going to do whatever it takes, biting him.
Yeah.
The scratching and clawing, literally, to get to what I want here, which is in the Inner Circle, for whatever nefarious means he wants in for.
For sure.
So brilliant. Again, great story.
Yeah, I think, and Jericho sort of playing up his heel tendencies, but not as well as some face tendencies as well. You needed a bit of a not just a heel on heel matchup here. Crowd helping, especially in the entrance, and MJF's entrance with the Jericho jacket, fantastic.
That was great.
The Jericho Judas song is just so, that entrance is so over, and him leaning into it more has just been more and more fantastic. And a sort of not typical, but sort of in the history of Jericho stuff, the Guerrero finish is certainly something that has come up more so than not. So I'm sure that was a great nod that Jericho took into mind as he was caught by his own sort of comeuppance there, as they both sort of went for Healy type tactics at the end.
Using the Eddie, that was genius on MJF's part, and it was the only roll-up finish of the night. So again, clean.
Well, I mean,
clean
other
finish.
than Darby, it was technically a roll-up. They were competing for roll-ups. with Cody.
I thought he. Oh yeah, but they didn't finish on a roll up. He finished with a clean pin off the coffin drop.
No, he beat him with a roll up. He beat him with a wrestling move.
I thought he hit the coffin drop, and then he just.
And then Cody went for the first roll up, and he kicked out. They competed for roll ups back and forth, and Darby caught him with a roll up.
I thought that happened before the coffin drop spot. I thought the coffin drop was the finish. No,
that's what put it over so much more for me, because it's the shock on Cody's face where he's like, he beat me, and he beat me with a fucking wrestling move. He didn't beat me with his like coffin drop with his other stuff. Like Darby went through the sequence, but then it was the where you thought that was going to be the finish, and then they ended up with it was the roll up. But
all right. I had that all backwards. Then I saw it backwards, but still, I thought that was the clean finish. Still, though, it wasn't. Wardlaw didn't get in. Hager didn't get in. I like that.
Exactly. Other than he just sort of used the distraction of the Guerrero thing with the bat as Aubrey turned her back to the match. Jericho caught there holding Floyd, and then MJF getting the roll up. You could tell Jericho, sort of stunned by the comeuppance in the end, but sort of very much willing to gesture to MJF and allow him and Wardlow to be part of the inner circle, which is now a pretty big faction at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to compete with the Nightmare Family, because it's huge now too. So
30 members in the Nightmare Family. Only half of them you'll see on TV though, so it's okay.
I guess that's fair.
I love the visual at the end of them leaving, and Wardlaw and Hager almost nodding to each other now. We're all right. We're on the team. You didn't. Okay. You were the guy that didn't not want us around. You were all right with us being here. So I could see them becoming a skyscraper style duo going forward as a tag team for as long as they are all in the inner circle.
Yeah, together. Like a strange bedfellows type thing at first, and then maybe they do start actually working together. Or who knows? I think there's plenty more to be told here. I think that was the nice thing overall about this pay-per-view. You're obviously getting the conclusion of a lot of stories. And then knowing that you're going to get another 4 months of build towards the next big pay-per-view of as these stories continue, some people branching off into other directions, and other things like this feud finally getting to this point where now it can get to the next level, where he's joined the inner circle, and we'll see what kind of inner turmoil takes place after that. And then, we got to this main event, which just chef's kiss on this full gear for AEW. Man, what a fantastic matchup this was. I Quit match between Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. And obviously the hype building up to this was just amazing. The video package got you amped up for it, and everything that they had done story-wise to get you to this point, and then the matchup itself just kept that intensity going from the very beginning to the very end.
Yeah, agreed. I've seen complaints from certain camps, most of the Jim Cornette style camp, who complain that an I Quit match should be all about submission wrestling, and this was a glorified war. I fall on the side that that's one way to go with an I Quit match. I've seen Dusty Rhodes and Terry Funk have fucking bloody slugfest wars in old NWA stuff, and that's what this reminded me of last night. I felt like I was watching throwback NWA wrestling. Dusty in the ring with Terry Funk, specifically those guys.
Yeah.
Warring over a belt that means everything to them. That was what made Terry Funk a fucking legend. Not like in later years, he became known as the old and crazy guy. Terry Funk was built on selling a promo that world title meant everything. I'm willing to put my life on the line like this because that world title means that fucking much to me. And that's what Eddie Kingston has been selling this as for the last month now.
Yeah.
And just phenomenal performance from Kingston again. My only disappointment of the evening was he didn't come away with the belt. Because I feel like, Kenny versus Mox is your next pay-per-view headline, especially if he's cleaner Kenny against Jon Moxley, and I still don't know which way I predict it going. If that's where you want February to be, I feel like you could have still given Eddie the win off of this for Mox to get it back in January, and it's not going to have hurt Jon Moxley to have lost last night, because it was such a good match, so much
because
emotion.
Of the stipulation, because he had put the stipulation on the match, that he had put all that pressure on himself as well as Eddie, and then for him to be sort of caught up in that, I certainly felt like maybe there was some more story to be told there. But if this is the sort of ending for it, the time being, man, the emotions just from all levels, from where you were just sort of the spots with the thumbtacks and the rubbing alcohol and the
oh god, I felt the rubbing alcohol. I literally felt that being poured on
well,
my
those
back.
are always just like the best spots are the ones where it's even if they don't look the worst on TV, it's the stuff physically hurts. Like that's why I always liked what's his name, Jimmy Havoc, because he did very physical things in that sense. The paper cuts, the stuff. What a paper cut feels like. What stepping on a thumbtack feels like. So when you do that and up the intensity, it just sort of it can't help but keep that sort of paintball rolling in your head. You're like, oh gosh, I can only imagine what that could be like. I mean, it was probably just water. Obviously, they didn't really do anything like that. But in your head, it's rubbing alcohol. That's what's in this bottle, and it pours it on them, right? So, no, the intensity of those spots between these two, and then building to the end. The use of the barbed wire was just insane, and then the elements on all ends. I think even just the small promo that helped Eddie get to this match, where he was talking about how he had never quit and blaming it on Bryce Rensburg, and then Bryce being the ref for this match, and then him getting in Eddie's face there at the very end, just begging and pleading for him to just give me an answer. I need to hear something, Eddie, but I can't call this for you again. This is on you. You got to just tell me you quit. And then him just like in tears, being just strangled by barbed wire and John Moxley's pressure on his throat. And he just lets out those words. You could just feel the sympathy in his voice as he just said it. And the heartbreak for Eddie and the accolades for Moxley. Fantastic match overall. But yeah, I certainly would lead to that sense too, where I would have been even more happy. I think it would have been a 1,000,000-star rating if Eddie Kingston had walked away with the title. Big surprise win here at the end of the night. And I wouldn't have put it past AEW, but I don't think that takes away from this match being amazing.
Oh God, no.
As well.
No, it doesn't take away from it at all. I thought it was just a great match. I just feel like it was their best opportunity so far to put the belt on someone they could truly say is their guy.
Yeah, true.
Right, because so far every championship belt has been held by, arguably outside of the tag titles now, and before SCU and ever WWE guys, outside of the tag belts, then arguably all of their belts have been on WWE guys. And none that there's anything wrong with that. I can completely understand and condone why, but I feel like this was a chance to say, look, it's one of those indie hero darling guys.
We are willing to do something else.
He's our guy, too, and he's our champ. I feel like Kingston could easily get a big face turn out of this. I feel like he's on the verge of being Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I'm not shitting. Like, he's on that close to being that fucking fire with these. If we were in a crowd environment, can you imagine how different the last few months will have been? It's hard to think now, but Brody Lee and Matt Hardy never yet got to wrestle in front of a true crowd for AEW. That's how fucking long we've been in this scenario already, and God knows how much longer we're going to be in it.
For sure.
Imagine how different Judas would be hearing it in front of 75 fucking thousand people instead of just 1,000.
Yeah. I mean, and to commend them, that feeling that crowd tonight was the closest I think we've come since Revolution, I'd say, in February, to a pay-per-view that, especially on AEW's part, that felt like one of their other pay-per-views. That was certainly the biggest sort of fault at All Out, was the fact that, like, there's some crowd, but they're just not mic'd, or they're just not embracing the matchups. There feels like too much distance, and we're not getting that engagement. But we had chants, we had cheers and boos and everything to sort of help, and like the wrestlers finally being able to play to an audience too, whereas it makes the world a difference. It does make a total world of difference in a match. It gives them more to play with, and I wondered if some of them were all of a sudden, because we've been doing it for so long, struggle with the fact that now you have to sort of remember that there's a crowd to sort of play to as well. But I think it's only maybe helped them in a sense to focus on the matchups and then let that sort of thing happen as well. So didn't seem to hurt any of them last night, right? I mean, it could only elevated this stuff. So it was just such a good show. 4 hours odd went by faster than I'll sit through half of a WWE pay-per-view sometimes and feel like I've been 6 hours standing on feet watching that shit. Well, this was night and day difference to what else in is matchups and like the fluidity of it, like going match to match and stuff like that, like a little bit of video package or a little bit of video, things like that, a little bit in between, but like the WWE push of just like, well, here's a fucking TV ad for our t-shirts, and here's the like what's coming up on like next pay-per-view, and here's this kind of thing, and the other thing, and then now we'll get to a match. And it's like, God, it's been 20 minutes before anyone even got out here. Like all the like filibuster and other kind of shenanigans they throw at you over there, it just, the fluidity here just feels so much more engaging, and the time just goes by like nothing, like it does here on Low Blow Radio podcast.
And the builds as well, right? I mean, we're complaining, our biggest complaint for build on this card specifically was the women's championship match, but it has actually had some development on both shows over the last month.
Yeah,
they did do something. We watched Survivor Series is going to come up in how long, couple weeks, and we're going to see matches booked during the fucking night that are going to show that haven't had to do, right? So it's complaining, but relatively speaking, these are such minor issues on a big picture scale.
Yeah.
So I always hate it when I feel like I've got to say something on the thing against some of the stuff with AEW. I don't want to be constantly on the praise. I got to find things I can pick fault in and find a bit to critique.
Sure.
But on the grand scheme of things, my God, are they ever kicking the shit out of the competition right now?
Yeah. Just it's getting harder and harder to try and find those holes, and the ones you do are so nitpicky and sort of like, again, so it seems inconsequential to the bigger picture of how much better they're fulfilling a product here. So a fantastic full gear from AEW, and I'm excited for Dynamite and can't wait to be back here for another blow by blow here on Low Blow Radio. You want to let everyone know where they can hear us, Chris?
You can hear us on a weekly basis live on the radio, 88.7 The River FM, local radio at its best. Starts at 7 o'clock, Low Blow Radio. If you can't get radio because you don't live in Ontario, Canada, you can listen to it online, 887theriver.ca, and you can listen to this podcast kicked out via sounder.com to lots of podcasty things.
And yes, if you want to watch us and also listen, you can catch us here on YouTube, and you can subscribe to the channel to let you know when videos are coming out. Ring the little bell, let you know exactly when they pop up. Give us a like, helps the channel grow, and hop into the comments. Let us know what you thought of Full Gear and our rapid blow here. And we'll be back for a blow by blow, I think, Wednesday for Dynamite. And we'll see you all then here on Low Blow Radio Podcast.
Adios, amigos.